Hi, Dr. Sean Hubbard here. Thank you so much for joining me in the Winner's Circle. People inspire me with their stories and then I share them with you. I think there's a great deal of educational value that we can gain from each and every human experience. Here's the big question of the day. Are you focusing on your goals and dreams? Now let me give you the background where that question came from. A few years back, I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman by the name of Ronnie. He was in his 40s. He was discovered by passersby. They found him unconscious, flopping around like a fish and foaming at the mouth. These were their words. They called paramedics and he was brought to the hospital, and I had the pleasure of seeing him the next morning on neurological consultation. When we dig deeper, we realized that Ronnie had been drinking frequently and heavily, and he had been doing that for quite some time. Then he suddenly stopped. He developed what's called an alcohol dependence, and then when he suddenly stopped drinking, he had an alcohol withdrawal seizure. It was kind of a symptom of his withdrawal. I asked Ronnie, what was the reason why you stopped drinking suddenly? And then he said, she was going to leave me. He was referring to a young lady at the foot of his bed. Ultimately, Ronnie was discharged to home, and then he actually came in 2 months later for a similar problem. This time it was unwitnessed, but he had fractured his ankle for reasons which were unclear. He was discharged to home. Once again, he came in 2 months later, and this time he came in inebriated. I said, what happened, Ronnie? He said, I knew I had gotten out of hand. I'd been drinking frequently and heavily. I knew I needed to stop, and I didn't want to have a seizure, so I came in for detox. We talked about it, and ultimately we agreed to follow up in the outpatient setting. I asked him before he was discharged, do you think that you can maintain freedom, alcohol freedom, for 1 week? He said, I think I can do that. We met in 1 week in my office, and then Ronnie came in and he said, guess what? It's been 1 week, alcohol free, and we celebrated that. We followed up in 1 month, and Ronnie said, I'm free for another month. And then we followed up in 6 months. He said, I've been free for 8 months now. And then 6 months later, free for 12 months. Now 18 months, 24, 30, 36 months. After a couple of years, we stopped counting how many months Ronnie had been alcohol free. Ultimately, he started to tell me more about the desirable things that he was discovering in his life. He was going to get married now, and he was receiving some promotions on his job. He was enjoying a new relationship with his son. And then one day he came and said, now we followed up for about 10 years really. At some point he came and said, I took my son to the Rockies and we went camping out there. And I realized that with all this new freedom, I'm able to do all sorts of things that I couldn't have done before. Now, you might hear the story and hear the success and think that the main victory that Ronnie had was that he was able to get away from alcohol. I suggest to you that Ronnie's main success was that he was able to discover victory. Here's the big question again. Are you focusing on your goals and dreams, or are you focusing on the things that stand in between your goals and dreams? Again, I'm Dr. Hubbard here, reminding you to keep the dream alive and keep winning. Thanks for joining.